Good morning and welcome to Gospel Bytes, where we take a bite at the Gospel for the day. Today is Wednesday, December 6th. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. This is taken from Matthew chapter 15, verses 29 to 37. At that time, Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, went up on the mountain and sat down there. Great crowds came to him, having with them the lame, the blind, the deformed, the mute, and many others. They placed them at his feet, and he cured them. The crowds were amazed when they saw the mute speaking, the deformed made whole, the lame walking, and the blind able to see, and they glorified the God of Israel. Jesus summoned his disciples and said, "My heart is moved with pity for the crowd, for they have been with me now for these days and have nothing to eat. I do not want to send them away hungry, for fear they may collapse on the way." The disciples said to him, Where can we ever get enough bread in this deserted place to satisfy such a crowd? Jesus said to them, How many loaves do you have? 7, they replied, and a few fish. He ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves and the fish, gave thanks, broke the loaves, and gave them to the disciples, who in turn gave them to the crowds. They all ate and were satisfied. They picked up the fragments left over, 7 baskets full. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. So Jesus did something. He was already doing many miracles. He was curing the sick. And he said, even the deformed. I've read of a story of a boy who was healed when the parents prayed before Blessed Vasil in Winnipeg. This boy had his legs were not the same length, so he had to wear crutches, and boy, it was a miracle. Just imagine being healed from polio or from deformations even. It's not just the fixing of something broken, but the growing of cells. That was very marvelous. Nobody would ever think that. And think of that. And Jesus did all of that. And now he did something else, something magnificent. He multiplied the bread and the fish. So these two things were almost impossible to happen. And there are many other things that God did. Mary, who was a virgin, got pregnant. Her cousin Elizabeth and her husband, both old and barren, had a child. And so many more. In the Bible, you see so many miracles that God has done. And Jesus was feeling pity because he saw the people were with them 3 days. For 3 days without any food. Now remember, those 3 days always would point to the resurrection of Jesus, the death of Jesus, and after 3 days he rose from the dead. And so after 3 days, Jesus performed this miracle, the multiplication of the bread. Just like Jesus rose from the dead after 3 days, that as Jesus presented his body, people touched his body, and he was the answer to their mourning. Jesus was also the answer to the hunger of people, both materially and spiritually. And I think that's something that we sometimes forget, that when we are in a very tight situation, we forget to call on God, and we think that maybe my money could save me. Maybe if I have these political influences, I won't have this problem. Maybe if I If I do this and that, I can look after myself. We forget about the things that God has done. I'm sure every one of us would have been in a situation when it's almost like impossible. Whether it's a sickness or whether it's a financial difficulty or a relationship or whatever it may have been, in an impossible situation, God saw us through. And that's why I recommend people to have a journal, to write down. Sometimes they write down their prayers or their dialogues with God or their conversations with God. There was a time when I was really feeling down because I had challenges both in the parish and personally, and I thought I did everything. I felt so helpless. I tried everything. And I looked at my journal from 10, 20 years ago, and I looked at all the things that God has done. And I said, how can I forget? If God was able to see me through this problem that I had 15 years ago, I'm sure there's all these things that I'm going through now are chicken feed, like they said, because we just forget what God has seen us through already. What God has already done in our lives. That's why if you read the Bible, a lot of the kings or the prophets, and even in the Magnificat or in the Benedictus, the prayer of the Song of Mary, the Song of Zechariah, they would always recount the deeds of God. And in the Maccabees, the book of Maccabees, when Judas or Simon was dying, he would recount what God has done from Abraham to Moses to David and to all that, because they want to make people, they want that their children and the people would remember that God never leaves us alone. You know, Jesus felt pity, and it's almost like he's saying, I will do everything for you, to the point that he even died on the cross to be bread for the hungry world. God will do everything for us, to help us, to save us. So don't ever be discouraged whenever you're facing a difficulty or a challenge. Remember, God is willing to do everything for you. You don't have to face your problems alone. And I think if we just put our trust in God, we won't worry as much. We won't be as stressed as much. That's one thing I've learned in my priestly experience, is that, just put everything in God's hands and just just chill out and know, let God do his work, and just allow him to do his work, and you'll be surprised. So if you're feeling stressed, especially as Christmas is coming soon, don't be. Remember that God will do everything for you. He feels, that's the word compassion. Cum, with, passion, feelings. God feels what we are feeling. And he knows he's not going to leave us alone. So put your trust in the Lord. I'm Father Jerry Sembrano for another edition of Gospel Bites. God bless you and have a nice day.